Hey everybody, this is Chris here from business.chriscurry.com. I'm grateful that you took time out of your day to watch this video. I'm hoping to encourage you and help you think differently about your money and your business, think differently about the economy and what's going on, and think differently about your thinking. Because if we can think differently, we can make better decisions and come out prosperous in the end. Today in this video, I'm going to talk about if you should buy a house during this time right now. At the time that I'm recording this, it's the middle of May, and it's right in the middle of this worldwide pandemic that we're having right now. The economy has gone all the way down and people are not working. There's a lot of businesses that are shutting down. The question that I got was, should I buy a house in this time? And the reason why that's a good question is because of the interest rates. Governments, in order to try to stimulate the economy, they have dropped the prime lending rate. The US has it at 0 right now. Canada is at 0.25. Countries around the world have dropped their borrowing, the cost for borrowing money, their interest rates so low that it will make it a good idea to buy a house in this scenario. But you need to think about if it's a good idea for you to buy a house in this situation right now that we find ourselves in the world and this economic climate. So I'm going to go over some pros and cons for you to think about, apply to your situation to see if it fits for you to buy a house in this situation. Before I go any further, I just want to clear the air with one thing. A lot of people think that buying a house is an appreciating asset, but I just want to make sure that I'm crystal clear when I say this. The land that a house is on, in most scenarios, is an appreciating asset. A house, the structure that you're living in, the house in itself, the walls, the roof, the bricks that make up the exterior, the house itself is a depreciating asset that requires maintenance and requires renovation to keep the value of that house high. Okay, so if you do nothing to a house and you just live in it, the value will depreciate. So I just wanted to clear the air that it's the land that the house is on that will more than likely appreciate as time goes on. But a house in itself, if you do not do any renovations or any maintenance to keep it in good condition, it will depreciate in value. I just want to clear the air with that because a lot of people think that if you buy a house, it will automatically appreciate in value. It is the land that will appreciate, not the house. Anyways, I have 5 things that I'm going to go over in this video to let you know if you should buy a house, things for you to consider if you should buy a house in this situation that we find ourselves in, considering the world's economy right now. Number 1, your credit score. If you have good credit, 750 or above on your credit score, more than likely you can get a lender to loan you the money to buy a house right now. An A lender is one of the big banks and they can give you the best interest rates. If you don't have good credit right now, chances are you'll have to go with a B or a private lender, and they will charge you a little bit higher interest rates in order to borrow the money to buy a house and additional transaction fees the lower your credit is. So if you have good credit right now, yeah, it might be a good time for you to buy a house. If you have bad credit right now, don't even think about it because these companies are out there and they're trying to make money. Don't be fooled, think that they're trying to help you to get a house. They're trying to make money off of you. But if you have bad credit, now is not the time for you to buy a house. And it'll be very difficult for you to even qualify for a mortgage. But if you have good credit, that's a check in the good box that you should go and try to buy a house. Point number 2 is if you have a sizable down payment. If you're trying to buy a house in this time and you have 0 down payment or very little down payment, 5-10%, chances are it's not a good idea to buy a house in this time right now. The reason being is what will end up happening, number 1, whatever the cost of the house is, you'll have a lot of debt associated to your names. For example, if the house costs $500,000 and you put 10% as a down payment, which is $50,000, that means you will have $450,000 of debt behind your name, right? And given the circumstances that we're in right now, it might not be a good idea to carry that amount of debt if you don't have a good plan to pay off your mortgage fast enough, right? But If you do have a sizable down payment, and I'm talking 20% or more, then it's a good idea to buy a house. The reason why it's a good idea is because you'll be able to have a smaller amount of debt. And the other thing that you have to consider is the mortgage insurance. If you put a smaller down payment on your house, most countries have something called mortgage insurance that you have to pay for in case you default on the house. The lender gets covered for their portion that they borrowed on the house, so they still get their money basically with this insurance that you have to pay for if you put a smaller down payment on the house. So this will just add to the monthly mortgage that you have to pay on the house. Additionally, if you have a larger down payment, that makes a smaller monthly payment. If you have a smaller down payment, that means you'll have a larger monthly mortgage payment. These are just things to consider, okay? One of the important things that you need to think about before you buy a house is your cash flow, your monthly cash flow. Is the money coming in enough to satisfy the money that you have to pay out, right? And you don't want to be, they call it house poor, meaning all your money that's coming in is just going to pay for the house and pay for things concerning the house, like the utilities, your bills, expenses, etc., right? You don't want all your money that's coming in to go just to those things to keep the house. The next thing that you need to consider is your emergency fund. And this is personal finance 101, basically. If you have 6 months of your expenses saved up in an account that you don't dip to and take a little bit out of it just to do little things here and there, 6 months of all your living expenses, your utilities, your car note, your mortgage payments, your phone bill, internet bill, all those things, you add them up. How much does it cost for a month? Maybe $2,000, $3,000. You times that by 6, and you have that amount of cash saved away in an account for a rainy day. If you do not have an emergency account with 6 months of money in it, then it's not a good idea to buy a house in this situation, because we don't know what's going to happen in the future. The economy, a lot of different states and provinces in Canada are opening up now after this lockdowns and quarantines that they've had in place for a while. They're starting to open up, but we don't know what's going to happen going down the line if another spike happens in your area of cases, and then companies who were open close down and more people end up losing their jobs. If those people who lose their jobs bought a house and they don't have an emergency account, then they're going to run into a situation where they're not going to be able to pay their mortgage. So this is just personal finance 101. Make sure that you have at least 6 months of your expenses saved away in an account just for a rainy day. If you do, it might be a good idea for you to go and consider buying a house in this situation. If you don't, I don't think you should consider it. The next thing that you need to consider if you're going to buy a house in this time is your debt to income ratio. Now, in most countries, you need to have, I believe it's 43% debt to income ratio in order to even qualify for a mortgage. Okay, now I would say try to target for 30%, but if you have 43%, that is the minimum, that is the threshold that you need to have in order to at least qualify for a mortgage. If it's greater than 43%, a lot of these lenders won't even think about your mortgage application. But it's a good idea if you have more income coming in than the expected income that it will be going out, then it's a good idea for you to consider buying a house in this circumstance. If you don't, if you have income coming in, but almost 60 or 70% of it will be going to debt and whatever other expenses that you have, then it's not a good idea to purchase a house in this time, because like I said, things are uncertain right now in the economy and we don't know what's going to happen. So you don't want to strap yourself down into a mortgage, which is a long-term transaction, a long-term contract that you're signing with this lender, and then something happen right off the gate within 6 or 7 months, and then you're not able to pay your mortgage. Okay, you want to make sure that you go into it fully prepared for anything that may happen. Okay, so that's something to consider, your debt to income ratio. And the final thing that you need to consider is the competition, the real estate competition that you face normally in your area. So in some places in the world, it's extremely competitive to try and buy a house right now in just about most places. So for example, places like Vancouver, Toronto, New York, San Francisco, there's lots of places where it's very challenging to try and buy real estate because there's so much other competition. And then this pandemic hit. So right now there's not a lot of people that are trying to go to open houses, trying to see houses that are for sale. Some people who were planning to sell their houses even decided to put pause on those plans until this whole pandemic is over, because they don't want strangers coming into the house who may potentially be carrying a virus, right, and infect their family and threaten their lives. So they've put a pause. So the supply of houses that are available right now has gone down, but also the amount of people that are looking to buy houses right now has also went down. So if you want to still go out and try to look a house, of course, be practical, use your wisdom that God has given you to protect yourself so you don't catch any type of virus or anything like that. But you can potentially go in and see a house that you like that's out there listed, if it's listed, and you could possibly put an offer into it and get the offer accepted, because there is less competition. Simply, there's less people trying to buy that house right now, out there trying to buy houses. There's less people. So if you live in a highly competitive area during this entire pandemic that's happening right now, you might be able to get a house with little to no competition. What does that mean for you? You'll be able to get it at the price that you want, more than likely, without other competition coming in driving up the asking price that you would find, that you would normally end up the deal agreeing to that price. Okay, less competition means you have more control over the final price. Okay, and there's no bidding wars to try and drive up the price. That's basically it. So these are my 5 things that I want you to consider. Again, think about it. Take what I have said to you. This is not financial advice. I'm just giving you my opinion based on how I've thought about it. So you think about it. Take your variables in your specific situation and apply these principles that I have spoke about, and think about it. If it's a good idea for you to buy a house in this time, it might be a great idea. It might be a bad idea, but you need to think about it, apply your personal criteria, whatever it is that make up your circumstance, into these variables, and then think about it, and then come up with your decision. Okay, that's all I have to say for today. I have other videos that will be a blessing to you if you want to watch them. They're over here and over here. Don't forget to subscribe. It means a lot to me if you subscribe, to let me know that I'm benefiting you by sharing my knowledge and the experience that I have based on what I've been through in my life. So be blessed, and I hope to see you on the next video. Peace.